Melissa Hart seemed to have it all: a charming husband, 2 beautiful kids, and a picturesque life in suburban Chicago. She worked part-time at a local boutique and spent her days as the doting wife and devoted mother. Her husband, Daniel, a respected architect, was admired for his dedication to both family and career. But behind Melissa's warm smile was a soul yearning for more: passion, danger, and the thrill of the forbidden. Her best friend since childhood, Sabrina Clark, was more like a sister. The two had weathered life's storms together for over 30 years. But no one could have foreseen the betrayal that would tear their bond apart. Sabrina was the steady one, a single mother who raised her son Jordan after his father abandoned them. She worked grueling hours as a nurse to give him a better life. Her pride and joy, Jordan, had just returned from college, temporarily staying with her while job hunting. Sabrina often turned to Melissa for parenting advice, their friendship a daily lifeline. But everything began to change the day Jordan walked through Melissa's door as a man. The charismatic son Jordan, now 22, was tall, athletic, and undeniably charming. He had always admired Melissa, the elegant woman who was like a second mother. But now, his feelings were no longer innocent. And Melissa noticed. Their interactions grew increasingly flirtatious, lingering touches, late-night texts, private conversations. What began as teasing curiosity soon spiraled into something dangerous. One evening, after a party, Melissa offered Jordan a ride home. The air between them was electric. When he kissed her cheek goodnight, she didn't pull away. Their first kiss turned into a tangled web of secret motel meetings and lies. Melissa told her husband she was helping a friend with wedding plans. Jordan claimed he had job interviews. Their passion blinded them to the inevitable fallout. Sabrina started noticing subtle but unsettling changes. Melissa no longer texted her good morning like she used to, and their weekly coffee dates were suddenly always being rescheduled. When Melissa did show up, she seemed distracted, checking her phone constantly. Jordan, too, had grown secretive, ducking out of conversations when his mother entered the room and guarding his phone like it contained state secrets. Then came the day Sabrina stopped by Melissa's house unannounced. The door was unlocked, and Melissa wasn't home, but Jordan's jacket was carelessly draped over the back of the couch. His cologne still lingered in the air. That night, as she lay in bed, something gnawed at Sabrina's gut. Her maternal instincts flared, clashing with her devotion to her best friend. She began taking mental notes: times, dates, reactions. The next morning, she called Melissa, asking how she'd spent the previous evening. Melissa hesitated before offering a flimsy excuse about helping a friend shop for wedding centerpieces. It didn't make sense. There was no upcoming wedding, no other friend she had mentioned. That lie was the first crack. Sabrina didn't confront her, not yet. But her intuition screamed louder each day. She felt like a storm was gathering above her head, and every smile Melissa offered now felt like a dagger hidden behind teeth. At brunch, Sabrina subtly asked if Melissa had seen Jordan lately. Melissa's spoon paused midair, her hands slightly trembling before she smiled and deflected the question with a laugh. But the momentary panic in her eyes didn't go unnoticed. Sabrina leaned back and studied her friend carefully. Melissa looked tired, almost haunted, like a woman hiding behind a fragile mask. Her nails were bitten down, and her phone sat face down on the table, vibrating every few minutes. Melissa never used to be this jittery. They shifted topics, but the tension remained like a shadow across the table. Sabrina's stomach churned. She wanted to scream, demand answers, but she didn't. Instead, she played along, quietly watching Melissa spiral deeper into deceit. Later that evening, Sabrina overheard Jordan on a phone call. She couldn't make out everything, but she caught enough. "I miss you. Can't wait to see you again. Same place as last time." Her heart raced as her suspicions were nearly confirmed. Yet still, she said nothing. That night, Sabrina stood in her bathroom, staring into the mirror. Her hands gripped the sink, knuckles white. She whispered, "Not yet, not without proof." It wasn't just her son's betrayal she feared. It was the death of a 30-year friendship, the unraveling of everything she had ever trusted. Melissa felt the walls closing in. Jordan grew anxious, suggesting they end the affair. But she refused. Her marriage had become routine, meaningless. Meanwhile, Daniel noticed Melissa's distance and questioned her late nights. She lied again. And again. The lies began to consume her. During a girls' night, Sabrina borrowed Melissa's laptop. What she found changed everything: messages, photos, and confessions between Melissa and Jordan. Her best friend. Her son. Her trust shattered in an instant. Sabrina shut the laptop and quietly left. But something inside her turned dark. Sabrina became withdrawn, skipping work and avoiding Melissa. Jordan tried to reach her. When she finally looked him in the eyes and asked, "Do you love her?" his silence was all she needed. Meanwhile, Daniel found a motel receipt in Melissa's purse. The truth clawed its way to the surface. Sabrina arrived unannounced at Melissa's home. Accusations flew. Tears fell. Melissa begged for forgiveness. But it was too late. Sabrina screamed, "You ruined my life," and drew a handgun from her purse. One deafening shot rang out. Melissa collapsed, blood soaking her blouse. Sabrina stared in horror at what she'd done. Daniel, hearing the shot from outside, burst into the room, finding Sabrina holding a smoking gun and Melissa unconscious. He called 911. Sabrina dropped the gun, trembling, repeating, "I didn't mean to." Paramedics rushed Melissa to the hospital. She was alive, but barely. Sabrina was arrested on the spot, too stunned to resist. The neighborhood buzzed with rumors. Daniel, devastated, followed the ambulance, not yet knowing the full truth but sensing the end of his marriage. At the hospital, Daniel confronted Jordan, demanding answers. Jordan confessed everything: the affair, the lies. Daniel nearly punched him but walked away in silence. Melissa survived surgery, but her physical wounds were nothing compared to what lay ahead. Sabrina sat alone in a jail cell, reliving every moment. Her rage, her love for her son, her shattered friendship. She regretted the gun, but not the confrontation. She knew she'd crossed a line. But she also knew Melissa had destroyed something sacred. Mother shoots best friend over son's affair. Reporters camped outside the hospital and police station. The story went viral, painting each of them, Melissa, Sabrina, Jordan, Daniel, as characters in a tragic soap opera. After days in a coma, Melissa opened her eyes. Groggy and dazed, she found Daniel at her bedside, silent and cold. The truth had torn through their marriage like a hurricane. She turned her face away, knowing forgiveness was impossible. Her first words were not of love or fear, but quiet defeat: "I'm sorry." If you're gripped by this powerful story, take a moment to support our channel. Like this video, share it with others, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more crime stories told like never before. Your support helps us keep these stories alive. In court, Sabrina sat shackled in her orange jumpsuit, staring ahead with vacant eyes. The courtroom buzzed with tension as the prosecution painted her as a woman consumed by rage. Her defense argued emotional trauma, betrayal, and diminished capacity. Melissa, still recovering, testified from a wheelchair. Her voice trembled as she admitted to the affair. The entire room seemed to gasp. Daniel couldn't meet her gaze. The judge set a date for the full trial, and Sabrina was denied bail due to the severity of the charges. As she was led away, Jordan broke down in tears, caught between guilt and grief. Daniel packed a suitcase that night. He couldn't sleep beside a woman he no longer recognized. Melissa tried to stop him, pleading, crying, begging for another chance. But Daniel had made up his mind. "You destroyed everything we built," he said quietly. He moved in with his sister, taking the kids with him. Melissa sat on the bedroom floor, surrounded by remnants of a life she once called perfect, realizing it had all crumbled in her hands. Jordan tried to disappear from the public eye. He was hounded by reporters, criticized online, and shunned by family friends. He couldn't land a job. No one wanted to hire the man who slept with his mother's best friend. He moved into a cheap apartment on the outskirts of town. Isolated and ashamed, he began spiraling, drinking heavily and avoiding calls. One night, he stared at a photo of himself as a child sitting on Sabrina's lap. He wept, whispering, "I'm sorry, Mom." The courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the back wall, pens and cameras poised, as Sabrina Clark entered in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. Her face was pale, drawn, and hollowed by the weight of betrayal and regret. She wouldn't look at Melissa, who sat in the front row beside her lawyer, bandages still visible on her shoulder, eyes rimmed with shadows of sleepless nights. The prosecution portrayed Sabrina as a cold-blooded woman who allowed jealousy and humiliation to drive her to attempted murder. She planned it, the prosecutor declared. She brought a gun. She waited until Melissa was alone. This was no heat of the moment outburst. This was vengeance. Sabrina's lawyer painted a different picture. A devoted mother and loyal friend who had been pushed to the edge after discovering a devastating affair. Imagine, her attorney said, your best friend sleeping with your son. Your son's future, your friendship, your trust, all shattered. She snapped. That's not criminal intent. That's a human breakdown. Melissa took the stand. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the witness box. I never meant to hurt her, she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. I loved her like a sister. But what we did was unforgivable. I see that now. Jordan sat in the gallery, unable to look up. His heart sank with each testimony, his chest tight with guilt. The media exploded. Hashtags trended. Hashtag best friend betrayal. Hashtag mother vs mistress. Hashtag Sabrina trial. Opinion pieces flooded social media, some siding with Sabrina, others condemning her. One viral clip showed a tearful Sabrina in court whispering, I raised him alone, and she stole him from me. Talk shows debated the morality of the affair, the ethics of revenge, and the psychological trauma behind Sabrina's actions. Memes circulated. TikToks reenacted scenes. People picked sides like it was reality TV, forgetting that real lives were being torn apart. Meanwhile, Melissa faced the court of public opinion. Her boutique saw boycotts. Strangers spat insults at her in grocery stores. She locked her doors and shuttered the windows. Her once idyllic life had become a prison of shame. Daniel finalized the divorce. There were no angry words, no courtroom drama, just papers, signatures, and a cold, quiet farewell. He gained full custody of their children. Melissa didn't fight it. She knew she had lost him long before the trial. Daniel poured himself into his work, trying to build something new from the rubble. But he couldn't escape the scars. Trust, once fractured, was nearly impossible to rebuild. Friends treated him like the victim, but he didn't feel like one. He felt empty. One evening, his daughter asked, Is mommy still bad? Daniel swallowed hard. Mommy made a big mistake, he said gently. But people are complicated. That doesn't mean she doesn't love you. He tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and walked to the living room, where he sat alone, staring at a family photo, wondering if any of it had ever been real. Prosecutors offered a plea deal mid-trial, 10 years in prison for aggravated assault with intent to kill. After weeks of deliberation, Sabrina accepted. The courtroom was silent when she made her statement. I lost everything because of love and betrayal. But I accept my punishment. Melissa sat in the back, her face unreadable. The gavel came down, and Sabrina was led away. Jordan didn't attend the hearing. Melissa returned home to an empty house. The silence was suffocating. Her children were with Daniel, and neighbors no longer smiled when they passed. The boutique fired her to avoid the publicity storm. Alone, she began attending therapy, not to heal her marriage or reputation, but to understand herself. She kept her blinds drawn. Grocery deliveries replaced outings. Once admired for her warmth and grace, Melissa was now a pariah in her own neighborhood. In prison, Sabrina found an odd peace. She joined a therapy group and began journaling. Her anger dulled into melancholy, and her shame transformed into quiet strength. I let my emotions destroy me, she wrote. But maybe now, I can rebuild, even behind these walls. Other inmates listened to her story in disbelief. Some pitied her, others admired her honesty. For the first time in a long time, Sabrina felt like her voice mattered. Jordan began writing letters to both women, long, tear-streaked confessions. But he never mailed them. He stacked them in a shoebox under his bed. Each letter began with the same line, I ruined everything. He started seeing a therapist too, hoping to reclaim some piece of himself. He cut alcohol, got a job in a warehouse under a different last name. A slow start, but a start. Daniel allowed Melissa to have supervised visits with the kids. Melissa welcomed them with open arms, hiding the pain behind forced smiles. Over time, the kids softened. They didn't fully understand what happened, but they missed their mother. And in those quiet afternoons of puzzles and snacks, Melissa found something close to healing. One day, Daniel stayed longer after drop-off. They spoke about school events and summer plans. It wasn't reconciliation, but it wasn't war either. Melissa reopened a boutique in a nearby town under a new name. She lived quietly, aging gracefully, her story now a whisper of the past. Jordan earned a business degree, started a small company, and volunteered at a center for at-risk youth. His mother wrote often from prison. Sometimes he replied. Sabrina, grayer but wiser, was released on parole. She returned to a small apartment and lived modestly, teaching GED classes to women who needed a second chance. Her eyes carried pain, but also peace. One rainy evening, she ran into Melissa at a bookstore. Both froze. The past pulsed between them like a ghost. "I'm sorry," they said at the same time. Neither expected forgiveness. But for the first time, they shared something new, understanding. Melissa once believed life was a picture-perfect frame. But betrayal shattered that glass. And some pictures, no matter how carefully arranged, can never be put back together again. What would you do if your best friend betrayed you like this? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more gripping crime stories. Share this video with someone who loves a good betrayal plot.